Okay, guys. See you, Clay. Thanks for helping me with the computers. Just don't open them yet. You grab one, just don't open them. Grab a Chromebook, guys, like you normally do. Just don't open them yet. Just don't open your Chromebooks yet. Okay. I'm just gonna wait for everybody to get here, so I don't have to close this long. But you guys, if you want to get started on your opener, you can do that. Lizzie, grab a Chromebook, just don't open it yet. Grab a Chromebook, just don't open it yet. Grab a Chromebook, hold on a second, just don't open it yet. Grab your Chromebooks and you can start on your openers as soon as, just give me 2 minutes of undivided attention before you continue with your opener or before you begin your opener. Is Katie here today? All right, let's just wait for Katie. In the meantime, you guys can work on your openers, your 3 questions. This is directly from a Regents exam. So take a peek at that. Okay, grab a Chromebook, but don't open it yet. So up on the board, if you guys pause on your opener for just a moment, up on the board, I've shared with you on your stream a list of the things that we're going to start this week with respect to the writing portion of the exam. I should have given everybody back your handout from earlier in the year that you gave me that highlights each of the 4 sections of the Regents exam. And today, we're going to start looking at part 2. I've circled it in red on your copy of the packet. We're going to start with the writing prompts, and today we'll begin working on the writing portion skills, which are part of the New York State Regents exam in U.S. history. We'll focus this week on part 2, short answer document skills, short answer document sets. And to gear up for this, please complete the following tasks in the order assigned. And it's not as daunting or as overwhelming as it looks here, but I spelled it out plainly so we're doing it in the correct order. To do this assignment and to get our feet wet on the writing portion of the assignments, I want you to read the packet, Understanding the Short Answer Essay, which is packets that I'm going to hand out to you now. It's basically 3 short pages on the document set portion of the test on part 2. So at some point, you want to do this first. This is the first portion of the assignment that you want to complete. Just reading over and having this packet handy as you're doing the assignment. You can pass those down, please. And the second portion of the assignment is to view my Edpuzzle video tutorial. That is me basically going through the document instructions in a short 20-minute video clip. So view the Edpuzzle video tutorial I have shared with you on how to complete the task. That will be hitting your stream about 2:30 tonight. And read the packet I just handed out first, then watch the video tutorial. Third step, you're going to review your short essay, document number 1 and document number 2. Short essay number 1 documents, which is on the Mayflower Compact and the U.S. Constitution. And I'm handing this out to you now. Once you finish the 2 portions of the assignment, steps 1 and 2, you'll attack the next step, which is the actual reading of the documents and completing the assignment on the back of this page. Pass those down. On the back of the page I just handed you, there are 2 questions, which the video tutorial that I've created is going to help you answer. So number 3, review your short essay number 1 documents and answer the questions as instructed in the tutorial video. I want you all, last handout today, I promise, I want you all to use the Regent style line paper that I'm going to hand out to you each time we do this assignment. I want this to become kind of second nature for you. So you're going to answer your questions on this line paper and then turn it back into me Monday. These assignments are due Monday, a week from today. A week from today in class. All right. Now Palin had asked a couple of weeks ago, when are we going to start the writing? Today is the day, and we're looking at part 2 of your Regents exam. That's why I handed this tutorial packet back, if I may, Alyssa. If you look at your packet that I handed back to you, I have circled in red. We are working on the second section, the part 2 short answer essay question, the short document set essay. This excuse me, this process I have no concerns that any of you are going to struggle with this, but it's new, and to do it the first time, I want you to follow the steps that I've outlined. Read the packet first, understand this short answer essay, watch the video tutorial. Please watch the video. I walk you through it step by step. And I refer to the documents that you actually got today as well as part of this. So make sure you're watching the tutorial. Then you're going to review your short essay documents on the Mayflower Compact and the U.S. Constitution, and you're going to answer the questions as instructed in the tutorial. Use the lined paper I will provide to answer the documents and questions. Again, a week from today, these are due. I've also put up on the board, next to my hair here, I've also put up on the board our assignments that are due this week. We've got an inquisitive due Friday. We've got a document set due next Monday, which I just provided you guys. So that's actually due on the 9th. And you'll have a vocab quiz Friday the 6th as well. Over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to extend this. The test that I gave you before Thanksgiving break, I'm going to give you until the Friday the 13th to complete. Friday the 13th. Okay? Does that help?
Yes.
Is that a help?
Yes.
All right. So I would rather we work on the document set anyway than the 50 question multiple choice test. So that it's still due, but it's just it's an extended date. Any questions on anything else? All right, so before you go to your Chromebooks and you open up your lessons today, I need you to accomplish two things. If you look at my stream here, at the top of the stream, I've got a couple of updates. I've got a new slideshow from last week on Chapter 12. It's on the anti-slavery reform movement. We are not going to go through the packet today on anti-slavery, but I am going to ask you to familiarize yourself with the slideshow. Know the material. It's basically a 10-slide slideshow on the anti-slavery reform movement. It's in conjunction with last week's lesson on the other reform movements, on temperance reform, on reforming education, on prison and asylum reform, and on women's rights. Make sure that you focus and you become familiar with the Chapter 12, the last slideshow section. We're not going to start it today. We're going to start a new chapter today. We're going to start Chapter 13, which I've posted up there for you as well. That's when we open our Chromebooks after you've done your opener. That's where we're going to start with westward expansion. So what I'd like you to do now, if you haven't done it already, I need you to take out your 3-question opener, your Regents Review openers, and get those done now. I'm going to collect these when you're finished. Get these done now. Take note, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you are reading the sourcing information under each of the stimulus, under each of the documents. The sourcing information is important on both of these documents. I want to tell you guys something too. I promise you, this probably looks daunting and looks kind of overwhelming right now. By the time you get through this week, a lot of this is going to make a lot more sense on these documents that we're in the writing portion. So don't feel overwhelmed. I'm after school 3 nights this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if anybody needs to come in after school. Guys, if you're unsure of any of these, just refer back to the screen where I've spelled it. Those instructions will stay up there. Or reach out to me by email or pop in during the free period and I'll walk you through if there's any confusion on any of those assignments. Bless you.
I should. No, I really
No.
want to. Huh? I don't want to quit basketball, but like.
I wanted to. I cried every night after preseason.
And then I quit. No, I love it. Well, I don't
I like
love
I'm a
it.
Right.
walker. If I'm a walker for basketball, I'm for basketball.
But like, I don't love it, but I like it. It's just, if I do drama club, then I'm gonna be in this for 2 weeks. This week. And then this entire week of practice.
But what if you do the spring?
I just quit basketball.
Yeah, do it in spring. Like you don't miss basketball, but you go to.
Do you play a spring sport?
Just lacrosse, doesn't she?
That's what.
Oh wait, lacrosse is spring?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, but you enjoy basketball.
No, I enjoy lacrosse more than basketball.
Yes, you should.
It's basketball. Who enjoys that?
I do. Dylan does. Blake might.
Do you
What?
play?
All right, so I got everybody's opener.
Lacrosse on top.
Today we're going to open up with chapter 13 and westward expansion, and the move beyond the Mississippi River. I shared with you all a copy of this PowerPoint, which is titled Chapter 13, slideshow number 1, westward expansion, and this theme is going to kind of connect with this idea of American, the American idea that it had an obligation, it had a duty, it had a moral duty to expand its influence from sea to shining sea. What is the name of that idea that America had, Lizzie, that promotes the spread of American cultures, values, policies, religion, etc., from sea to shining sea? Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at when we talk about today moving forward in this lesson. So let's start by opening up with a intro to westward expansion. And we're talking about the period from the 1830s and the 1840s. Many Americans are moving west of the Mississippi River. And the primary focus in the 1830s and 1840s is what? What's the motivating factor for people moving west of the Mississippi? Are they looking for gold? Are they looking for riches? Are they looking for something more practical, Anna? It's motivated primarily by land. Now, there's other aspects to it. There is an excitement level. There is the feeling that we have to expand west to see the sights, to see the land, to conquer the wilderness. But at its core, all the good land in the United States had been already occupied and already claimed by 1830. So if you came to America, or you were in America before 1830 and didn't own land, if you want new land, you've got to go west, my son. You've got to go west, my daughter. You have to move west. And this is going to be the motivating factor. Okay? This movement was driven by various factors, including economic opportunities and this idea of manifest destiny. The idea that American culture and policy and economic life and religion and way of life had to be spread west. Okay? And in this lesson, we're going to talk about how this is going to take place. How this is going to take place. Let's take a look first at our author's lesson on this topic.
One of the greatest themes in American history is the constant exploration, this desire on the part of generations of Americans to head west and start their lives afresh. And there's so many fascinating, compelling examples of that questing spirit that's always been a distinctive aspect of American culture. Think about being a pioneer on one of the overland trails, making your way from St. Louis, Missouri, over the Rocky Mountains to California or to Oregon. Think about the dangers, the risk involved in that. Think about the loneliness of being on that trail. And yet, tens of thousands of Americans during the first half of the 19th century made that trek across the plains and across the mountains, and many of them died in the process. Yet those who survived continued to display those same qualities of courage and tenacity, inventiveness and persistence that enabled those Western territories and eventually Western states to become dynamic participants in the American dream. That process unfolded throughout the second quarter of the 19th century and helped spread that nation and its ideals from coast to coast across an entire continent.
Coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. And that's going to kind of be a recurring theme as we move through the 19th century, that America needs to spread its influence and its lifestyle and culture farther and farther west. Now, in this image here, before we look at the notes on this slide, I've added an image, hopefully it's on your copy as well. I've added an image that's probably one of the most famous paintings in American history. This painting is by an artist named John Gass, G-A-S-T, and it appeared in a magazine in 1872, and it includes a figure called Columbia. And Columbia, who is pictured here, is the female figure of America, leading Americans into the West and into the future by carrying the values of republicanism, as seen by the Roman style clothing she's wearing, okay? The Roman Empire, or the Roman, the great city of Rome and the Roman civilization was on the mind of our founders when our Constitution was written, and that republicanism represents the creation of a republic, a government in which people choose their leaders. So Columbia is wearing the gown of the Roman Republic, and progress is shown through the inclusion of technological innovations like the telegraph and clearing native people and animals. This image is basically an American allegory, an American metaphor for Manifest Destiny. If you Google Manifest Destiny and you look at the images that show up, undoubtedly this image will appear on their first group of pictures. Undoubtedly. That's how closely connected this image is with Manifest Destiny and Americans moving westward. Now, let's talk about reasons for moving west. And we'll look at the notes and then we'll look at the author's video next. First off, economic opportunity. Americans are looking for fertile land for farming and any potential for wealth. Americans are looking for ways to get wealthy. Americans are looking for ways to stake their claim. Americans are looking for ways to become successful. Poor immigrants from all over the world who have come to America recognize America as a place where with a little hard work and a little bit of persistence and a lot of effort, you can become very successful. And they're using this traveling west as a way to obtain those ends. Manifest Destiny, as he said, is the belief that Americans were destined to expand across the continent. And Manifest Destiny certainly has positive attributes. It's really a testament to American persistence and American determination and American grit. But there's also negative connotations to Manifest Destiny, because we certainly recognize that Manifest Destiny meant that as Americans are moving west, what's happening to the groups of people that are in the Americans' way as they're moving west. They're literally getting pushed aside and told to leave or to move somewhere else, or in some cases slaughtered during the course of American expansion. So escape from economic depression and overcrowding in eastern cities is also part of this as well. So Anna said land, and land is certainly the number one motivation, but there's other factors as well. People want to get the hell out of cities. People are recognizing, especially during the height of the Industrial Revolution, that city life is not necessarily for everyone. That people want to, again, history doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's a lot of things going on at once. In 1803, 4, and 5, Lewis and Clark basically explored the territory west of the St. Louis all the way to the Pacific coast, and they come back with a whole bunch of information for President Jefferson. And Americans, even 30, 40 years later, are still looking to cash in on that excitement that Lewis and Clark had participated in during their legendary expedition west and back. So an escape from overcrowding and also economic bad times in the city. A lot of people weren't willing or didn't want to resort to working in factories for low wages for the rest of their lives. A lot of people, and I use that term, they wanted to stake their claim. They wanted to go out and they wanted to make a name for themselves by exploring the vast continent, which, at least by American settler standards, was largely uncharted. It had been occupied, it had been charted by Native American groups, but as far as European settlers go, and new immigrants to America, this whole territory west of the Mississippi River was literally uncharted. And they viewed it as there for the what? American settlers viewed that land for the taking, even though it was occupied for thousands of years by Native Americans ahead of that. Okay? Remember, her name is Columbia. She is kind of like the female representation of America and Manifest Destiny. Beautiful image, by the way. John Gast, G-A-S-T, 1872. Manifest Destinies, become a representation of that. She's kind of guiding people westward across the continent. You will probably see that at some point on your Regents exam going forward. Let's see what our author has to say about her in this.
One of the most dramatic episodes in American history occurred when tens of thousands of Americans migrated from the East Coast across the Mississippi River into the Great Plains and ultimately to the far West Coast. What drew them? Well, as always, the most powerful motive for moving west was the opportunity to acquire land. Tens of thousands of Americans became pioneer farmers, ranchers. Others, however, were motivated by religious reasons. The Mormons moved from New York to Ohio to Missouri and ultimately to Utah in search of religious freedom, the ability to create their own community and not be the subjects of prejudicial animosities as they were in every location prior to that. And finally, the discovery of gold in California in 1848 not only attracted hundreds of thousands of Americans to California in the hopes of striking it rich, but tens of thousands of people from around the globe also participated in the gold rush in California and eventually in other states of the far west. So land, religious freedom, and gold were the primary motives for moving westward.
We talked about the Mormons last week. The Mormons actually began in New York, and everywhere the Mormons went, they were kind of pushed out by people who were very, very uncomfortable with a lot of the Mormon beliefs and the Mormon teachings until eventually the Mormons would settle in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah, where most of the world's Mormons still trace their ancestry to and still live today. Utah is almost overwhelmingly comprised of people of the Mormon faith. All right, so back to our PowerPoint on this topic. Let's go to our next slide and take a peek at the role of government. Okay. Now, as people are moving west, people are looking for land. Okay, people want to farm, people want to build homes, people want to live far away from civilization. The government is encouraging westward expansion through policies and incentives. And this is going to be done primarily through land acts providing settlers with land at low costs. Okay? This is done with the U.S. government providing settlers with land at low cost, encouraging small farmers, small families to buy a piece of land and to move westward. And this absolutely is going to be a factor that's going to encourage many, many hundreds of thousands of Americans to move west. Military protection is also going to be offered against Native American tribes. So if America, and this is important, as America is moving west and as government is playing a role in helping Americans to move west, it's going to be significant that military protection is going to be provided by the U.S. government against Native American tribes because the U.S. government has a vested interest in Americans settling the Western territories. The United States government wants to expand as well. The United States government, if you look at it in simple terms, look at the United States as a new empire in the early 19th century who wants to become as rich and as powerful as it can become. And how do nations become rich and powerful? Just think about global last year in 9th and 10th grade. Katie, how do nations become rich and powerful throughout history? They get more land. They acquire more territories. They conquer new lands and peoples. And that's exactly what's happening here with the United States in the early to mid-19th century. The United States is encouraging people to move west, and the United States government is supporting policies that will let people move west by offering land grants. We'll talk more about land grants specifically in a later slide. But just understand for today that government is helping play a role in this spreading of American culture from sea to shining sea. America wants to expand its footprint. When we talk about expanding its footprint, we're talking about America wants to be bigger, they want to be stronger, they want to be better, and they want to be recognized as a world power. And how better a way to do that, what better way to do that than by spreading from the east coast of a vast continent all the way across said continent to the west coast. Not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. America was looking to gain power. America was looking to gain prestige and influence, and that is its manifest destiny is their ticket to accomplishing that. All right. Next slide, please. Transportation and technology. Now, here's the cool part. America wants its citizens to move west, but what are we lacking in the early part of the 19th century, early to mid 1800s? What's lacking? A system of what? Transportation system. A system of roads, bridges, and tunnels. It has to be created or it has to be improved. We had roads, but they were dirt. They were paths. They might have been made of logs. They might have been made of stone or gravel, but they weren't very long-lasting. They weren't very effective. So what's got to happen is America, to make this expansion happen, America has to, in the words of Henry Clay, America has to work on its infrastructure. America has to improve its infrastructure. And covered wagons and the development of trails is going to facilitate people moving. The first national road is going to be built. Then the first national road is going to be built, which is going to connect parts of Illinois to Kentucky, West Virginia rather, to Illinois, and it's going to be primitive by today's standards, but it's going to be a national road that was paid for with taxpayer dollars. Okay, taxpayer dollars. The Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail are going to be key routes to moving west. The Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail are going to be key routes, and also innovations like the steamboat are going to improve river travel. What's important with the steamboat is going to allow people to travel both upriver and downriver, upstream and downstream, without having to rely on backbreaking manual labor. Okay, so the steamboat is going to allow people to travel up and down, primarily the Mississippi River. Okay, primarily the Mississippi River. There are others, but generally speaking, the steamboat is going to be vastly and help improve river travel. Okay, so transportation and technology is going to play a part in westward expansion as well. Let's continue. Challenges are going to be facing the settlers though on their way. It's not going to be an easy road. Okay, and I use the word road. It's not going to be an easy trail. It's not going to be an easy path for them at all. All right, harsh weather conditions and difficult terrain. Conflicts with Native American tribes is going to be continual and sometimes very, very, very violent. All right, and also limited supplies and risk of disease. People are taking a huge chance crossing a continent that they had very little knowledge of, very little idea of what they were going to face in terms of enemies, very little details on what they were going to face in terms of weather and climate. You don't think about this too often, but we live in a country, the United States is a country in which we have 9 or 10 different climate zones. Meaning, on this very day today when I left the house and it was about 19 degrees in Cambridge, on this very day it's 19 degrees in Cambridge and I'm bundled up and my coat was on this morning when I left, yeah. People in Florida today, same country, are traipsing on a beach somewhere in a bathing suit and sitting out in the sun having margaritas. Now that illustrates that we live in a country, we live in an area where there are vast differences in climates. And many times as people are traveling across the West and moving from one part of the country to another, they're simply not ready for what they're going to experience, both in terms of people, in terms of wildlife, in terms of geography, in terms of having to cross rivers that might not have bridges, that might not be passable. So this traveling west was not for the faint of heart. It was not easy. It was characterized by uncertainty and oftentimes death and calamity. There's an old There's an old story we heard when I was in high school about traveling west on one of these roads that were filled with, we call them potholes today, but roads back then were basically filled with wheel ruts. The covered wagons that drove on these dirt roads, these dirt paths, when it rained or when a thaw came in the spring, sometimes the holes in these wheel ruts would be 6, 8, sometimes 10 feet deep. And the story goes that a wagon comes up to a big puddle in the middle of the road, and they see a hat in the middle of the puddle, like a top hat, the kind of hat that a man, or maybe a cowboy hat, type of hat that a man would wear, and the hat is literally floating in the top of the wheel rut. And one of the women says, "Why, honey," she's on the front seat with her husband in the wagon. She says, "Honey, why don't you get out and pick up the hat? Somebody might have dropped it." And the husband jokes back to the wife, "That hat wasn't dropped. The driver of the wagon's underneath the hat." That's how deep these holes were. Now, it was a joke. He was joking with his wife, but it illustrates the point that a lot of these wheel ruts, if you're driving a covered wagon or a Conestoga wagon on one of these roads that is washed out with mud or with slush or with snow, okay, you literally had your life in jeopardy driving a wagon on a lot of these wagon roads. If you weren't in jeopardy, you were certainly driving uncomfortable. You'd be bouncing around. Everything would have to be tied down. If it wasn't tied down, you're going to lose stuff out the back. All right. There are plenty of stories on these wagon roads of people actually losing people in the back and not knowing until they got to the next stop that somebody had been missing, because there's so much noise on board these wagons as they're moving that the screams and the yells of the people who fall out cannot be what? Cannot be heard. So this was dangerous. And probably the worst, though, is going to be the conflict with the Native American tribes. Because what's happening, a lot of Native American tribes are going to start pushing back as people start to come into their territories. And a lot of those Native American tribes have been asked or told to move multiple times already. As more and more American settlers start to move into their territories west, Native Americans are going to fight back, and they're going to fight back with a bloody vengeance, putting at risk anybody that comes into their territory. All right? I don't know why this popped up as a picture when I created this, but that's an Oregon Trail. That's a map of the Oregon Trail. Okay, shows its path from the center of the country to the Pacific Northwest. All right. So challenges they faced were immense and numerous. All right. Let's look at slide 7. We'll finish here. Destinations of westward migrants. Many settlers moved to Oregon for its fertile soil. Many are going to move to Oregon for fertile soil. California is going to attract thousands of people in 1848 and thereafter for the gold rush. All right. And Texas is going to offer a huge opportunity for farming and for ranching. We'll stop at that point because I'm not going to compete with Screaming Seventh Graders. We'll pick up tomorrow. Is everybody clear on the assignments for this week? If you guys need a heads up, just reach out, okay? What do I have to post for you tonight? Your tutorial video, right?
Yeah.
Okay.